Welcome, Middlers, to the Medium in the Middle podcast. My name is Stephanie, and I take you on a journey of self-discovery and spiritual exploration. I am a Reiki master teacher, a spiritual and business mentor, and of course, a psychic medium. And I am here to share my story and help you tap into your extraordinary abilities. Join me every Wednesday as we dive into the realms of intuition, energy healing, and all things mystical. Whether you're a seasoned spiritual seeker or just dipping your toes into the magical waters, this podcast is your go-to source for inspiration, guidance, and a whole lot of lessons and laughter along the way. Let's get started. Hello, Middlers. Welcome to the Medium in the Middle podcast. My name is Stephanie. I am the Medium in the Middle. Welcome to episode 302. This week's podcast episode is part 2 of episode 301. I don't know how to explain this. This is part 2 of I don't know how to explain this. And it is a completely different story, but there was these two things that happened all in the same week that really, I don't have any other words, but freaked me out. It was one of those things, it was like blink, 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 excuse me, what? And I would say that part 2 probably freaked me out more than part 1 did. Part 1 was more of like a brain, I couldn't get out of it. Part 2 is different because I did something that I didn't know I did. I received a lot of comments and feedback on part 1 that other people had experienced this, so that was really helpful. A lot of people chalked it up to like a timeline shift. All time is linear, happening at the same time. Maybe in another universe he had kids and we met, another timeline. I'm really not sure, but it was something that took my brain for a loop, so that's for sure. And this week's episode is another one that, again, my eyes were bulging out of my head when a friend told me this story. So this one is spirit related, and it's something that happened with mediumship when I was out at the bar. I have a lot of episodes of me being like, so I was out at the bar, and this is one of them. This podcast is coming out on April Fools, and usually every April Fools, I do an April Fools joke where I say that I'm offering mediumship readings for $1,000 and my books are now open and you can book with me. I will not be doing that this year because I couldn't even imagine the amount of emails and DMs I would get. Every year that I do it, I get so many emails and I always respond with, "Did you listen to the whole video? I said they were $1,000. So I won't be pranking you guys this year. I know that was mean the last few years. A lot of people were really excited. But on that note, I do not offer mediumship readings publicly, and I am fully booked virtually all the way into the summer. So I am not accepting new clients at this time, and I don't hold a wait list. There are 2 mediumship practice circles happening in April. There's one on April 18th. It's a Saturday morning. And then there's one on April 23rd. It's an evening circle. That April evening circle will be my last evening circle of summer. The evening circles will come back in the fall. And then just quickly, the next Reiki Level 1 with availability is July 25th and 26th. And there are Reiki Level 1s and Reiki Level 2s up on my website. There will be more coming in August and into the fall. Reiki will find you when you need it. So if a date works for you, that's great. I would save your spot, but don't feel rushed or pressured. I will be teaching lots and lots of Reiki. I've been doing this for years and I will continue. If you are already a Reiki Level 2 practitioner and you are looking to work in Reiki and you are looking for advanced skills, every year I teach the Advanced Reiki Practitioner Masterclass. I do it live once a year and then I sell the replay on my website for the remainder of the year. So that is happening live this April 25th. You can join me live or you can catch the replay and you'll have the replay access for 1 year. It is a 4-hour masterclass that will cost you less than what you make in 4 clients. Specifically designed for those who want to work in Reiki and want advanced techniques, this course is designed for 3 to 6 months after your Reiki Level 2. I will leave all the links you need and more information down in the show notes. So like all of my good mediumship stories, this story starts in a bar, and it's coming up again because this actually happened 2 years ago. And the 2-year anniversary is coming up this month. So I'm not exactly sure how this came up, why it was brought up, but I saw my friend and he said, "Hey, like you did these 2 things that were really, really scary." And I was like, "What?" So he proceeded to tell me the story. First, I will tell you my recollection of the story, and then I will tell you, I guess, what actually happened. So, what I remember from the story is I was at the bar, and this friend works at this bar. So, we'll call him Joe because everyone on the podcast is now called Joe. So, you walk in, you say, "Hi, Joe, how are you?" And I was shaking his hand and I said, "Hi, Joe, how are you?" And he was telling me about how he was going home for Christmas and he hasn't been home for Christmas in a while. And I was asking about his mom and his dad, and he said that his mom was passed away. And then I turned his wrist over and I was like, "Oh, yeah, and this tattoo is for her." And then I started telling him a bunch of things. So I remember telling him something about him falling out of a tree when he was a kid, something about a scar, the tattoo, something about his sister's birthday, and I remember turning his hand over and like pointing at the tattoo on his forearm. That's what I remember. Joe says that's not what happened. So apparently I said to him, "Hi, Joe, how are you?" And I said the dates that his mom was born and passed away. So for the sake of this, let's say 1974 to 2002. So apparently I was shaking his hand and I said, "Hi, Joe, 1974 to 2002. And he was like, "What?" And I was like, 1974 to 2002. You know what those dates are. And he said, "What?" And I said, "How are you, Joe?" Then he said, I turned his wrist over and I said, "Yeah, it's for your mom." I don't remember saying the dates before I looked at the tattoo because the tattoo says the dates on them. It says 1974 to 2002. I don't know if those are the exact dates, but we're just going to roll with it. And then he said I started talking about his mother and I started saying all these things that there was no way I could know, and he was really freaked out. And I remember being like, "Hey, like we can do this later, but like you're working, I'm out here drinking. Like if you want a reading, let's do it later." But in my mind, I just like dropped a few nuggets and then, the night went on. So I didn't remember the part where he said I said his mother's birthday and her death date. He said that was the first thing I said before I turned over his wrist. And I remember turning over his wrist and I remember pointing at the tattoo and saying, "This is the tattoo for your mom." And I didn't know that. I didn't know he had a tattoo on his forearm. He has tattoos everywhere, like his arms, his back. He has tattoos everywhere. So I didn't know that this specific tattoo was for his mom. And I went from shaking his hand to turning his hand over to being like, "Yeah, this tattoo." He said right before I said that is I said his mom's birthday, death date. He said, "What?" I repeated it and said, "You know what those dates are." He said, "What?" And I said, "Hi, Joe, how are you?" is what I said. And he said he was so freaked out. So he didn't say anything. Then he said a few days later, again, I'm back at the bar saying, "Hi, Joe, how are you?" So I walk in. This time was at the front door, I remember. So I walked in. I said, "Hi, Joe, how are you?" And I was shaking his hand. That's my memory of it, at least. He said I walked in, shook his hand, and I said, "5 more bites." He said, "What?" I said, "5 more bites." He said, "What?" I said, "Hi, Joe, how are you?" Now, this happened 2 years ago, and he never told me because when this all first started, I remember one of the things that I said was, "Oh, it's been 20 years since his mom passed." And now it's been 22 years. Okay, so the correct date that she died was 2004. I think I said 2002. Anyway, so the first time this happened was 2 years ago, and it was around Christmas time, but it was her 20th year anniversary that was coming up. He brought it up again because his mom's death anniversary is either in March or April, and he hasn't told me this in 2 years. So I was like, "Joe, why didn't you tell me this?" And he was like, "Because I was scared." And I was like, "Yeah, that's really weird." And he was like, "Yeah, you think it's weird?" He's like, "How do you think I felt?" He said, "The 5 more bites thing is a thing me and my mom had." He said, "That was like our only thing. No one knew that. That was our only thing that me and my mom had. She would say 5 more bites. I would say 5 more bites. And then I would eat 5 more bites of my dinner. And that was like our thing." He's like, "There is no way you could have known that." He's like, "No one knows that. That's just between me and my mom. And when you said it, it really freaked me out. And it was 2 days before where you said the date of 1974 to 2004. And I was like, "Why haven't you told me in 2 years?" And he was just saying, like, it was freaky. Like, I was freaked out. And I'm only telling you now because, now I have the courage to tell you. And it was really interesting because he said, "I knew that you didn't know that you said it." He said it because I was looking at you, shaking your hand. It was almost like you blacked out. He was like, your eyes were different when you said 5 more bites and when you said the dates. And then I was like, what? It was like you snapped back and you were like, I said, how are you, Joe? And that is the part that freaked me out. I'm like, what do you mean I blacked out? Because I don't black out. When I drink, I don't black out. I don't drink very much, but like I've never blacked out from alcohol in my whole life. I remember everything. But he works in the bar. He knows what people are like. You know the blackout eyes when you see them. He said, yeah, when I said those two things, 5 more bites, and when I said the dates, he's like, your eyes went blank like you were blacked out, like you didn't know what you were saying. And then when he said what, and I said, how are you, Joe? He's like, it's like you came back. And I was so freaked out because that has never happened where I've said things and not remembered them. But for someone to say that I did it 2 times, he said it was 2 days apart, and he said it was the exact same thing, but 2 different pieces of information where it looked like I blacked out. I said something. And then when he said what, I said, how are you, Joe? And then we had this long conversation about how weird that is, how that's freaky. And I was like, even for me, like I'm a medium and that's kind of freaky. And he was like, yeah, how do you think I feel about this? And just to reiterate, my friends aren't really into this stuff. A few of them are, but a few of them aren't. And especially the boys. Sometimes I'll hit them like with a few things from their mom, or, if someone needs something, I'm always like, let's talk about this, not at the bar. But each of my friends do have their own story of Steph said this, this, and this to me. It freaked me out, and we're just going to leave it at that. So I remember that I had this story with Joe. I remember grabbing his arm. I remember the tattoo thing. I remember the 20 years. I remember his mom. I remember those things. But the fact that he said that my face looked like I blacked out and I just said 5 more bites, and he said each time I said it twice. 1974 to 2004. What? 1974 to 2004. You know what that is. Hi, Steph. How are you? 5 more bites. What? 5 more bites. What? I said, how are you, Joe? And I've done things before without realizing it. Like I remember I was talking to someone's dad in spirit once, and I didn't realize it, but I guess I like said the sentence in very bad English. Like either I said it backwards or it was not proper grammar or it was just said incorrectly. And the sitter started laughing and she said, my dad would talk like that. English wasn't his first language. And I hadn't realized that I had said it incorrectly. I was like, oh, why? What did I say? And she's like, oh, you said this, which is bad English. And I was like, oh. So stuff like that has happened or I do mannerisms of your loved one, or I say something the way your loved one would, or I'll start humming the way your loved one would. But the piece that really took this one off was like, he said that my eyes looked like I was blacked out when I said it, like I was unaware of what I was doing. And it's weird because I wasn't channeling. So in a mediumship session for this to happen, that's fine. I was walking into a bar both times. So this was completely random, completely off the cuff. Once it was by the door, so I would have been saying hello to him as we entered. And the other time, I'm pretty sure he was bartending because I remember we were on the side of the bar where we say hello to everybody. It's a small town, so we have like the same bars, the same bartenders, the same people work everywhere. We all go to the same places all the time. So when you walk into a place, we say hello to all of our friends. And so anyways, this was just unusual because I wasn't in a channeling session. If this happened in a channeling session and someone was like, oh, you said 5 more bites and I forgot, that's different. This was me walking into a bar and saying 5 more bites before I even said hello to him. And he was like, that was the only thing I had with my mom. That was our thing. He said, no one knows that. You said 5 more bites. And I was like, huh? And he instantly thought of his mom because she used to say that to him all the time. So when I did last week's episode, I knew I had to deliver this story as the part 2 because I also don't know how to explain this. Yes, I know I'm always a medium. And yes, there's some times where it's like, I know I'm tuning in. For example, another time I was at the bar, this is just a quick story. We were all in the bathroom and my friend's dad has passed away and my other friend, her brother has passed away. And my friend was kind of saying, Steph, like, I think I'm finally ready to talk to my brother. I think like I'm ready to do a reading with you. And I was like, yeah, like anytime you guys want, like, obviously we're not going to do it now because we're in a bar bathroom, but you let me know. And then my other friend with the dad who's passed, she was like, yeah, like I've been thinking about it too, but I'm scared. And I was like, oh, what do you got to be scared about? It's just me. She's like, I know it's just you. And I've known you for like 15 years. She said, I just want to ask my dad about selling his property. And without skipping a beat, I was just like, he said, wait till summer. And she was like, what? And I was like, oh. And I was like, sorry, it came so fast. I was like, he just said, wait till summer. She's like, I knew I should wait for summer. I knew it. And she just kept saying, I knew it. I knew it. I knew it. I was going to wait for summer. I knew it. And I was like, okay, well, that's what he said. Let's leave the bathroom, everyone. So again, like when that stuff happens, I know what it is because we were talking about it, and then it just dropped in so fast. It was like, wait till summer. And she already knew wait till summer. So then, and then everyone's like, oh, we're freaked out. Stop. This is why I preach, don't do mediumship at the bar. Learn from my mistakes. But these little things sneak in. I know I'm a medium. I try to keep it off. I try to be off all the time, especially when I'm out. I try to be off. But those little things are so easy to sneak in that, yeah, I understand that. She asked a question to her dad. Her dad answered like immediately. But this, walking in to the bar and just saying it right away, that's kind of odd. And it still makes sense, like mediumship wise. I know I'm a medium. I know I'm psychic. Sometimes I say things without realizing it. I guess I just need to get over it that this has been happening for 8 years, but it never gets old. You're never like, oh yeah, no problem. Some things are like, oh yeah, no problem. But certain things I'm like, oh yeah, that's freaky. That's interesting. That's a little, ooh. So I had to bring those stories to you because we were sitting there as Joe was telling us this story. He's like, and he's like, it's taken me 2 years to tell you because I was so freaked out. And he was like, how do you think I felt? And I was like, well, yeah, I get it. How do you think I feel? He's like, you're the medium. I was like, yeah, I know. Anyways, so that's this week's podcast episode. And this wraps up the series of weird things that have been happening. And those two stories last week and this week, they happened within like a week or 10 days of each other. Like they happened fairly close. So when the guy came into my office and I was like, I knew him. And then when this stuff happened with Joe, I was thinking, what the hell is going on? I don't think that my abilities are changing. I don't think that anything new is happening. I think these are just unique experiences that I am definitely going to take note of, and I'm going to pay attention to what happens as things go. Information delivery can change. Things can come in a new way. Your abilities can shift. So I'm always trying to pay attention to, is something new happening? And this is definitely going down in my notes. Don't forget to write things down. I still write things down to help me remember things. What'd you have for lunch on Wednesday? You don't remember. Exactly. Write things down. You're not going to remember when these little intuitive hits happen. So thank you for listening. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the podcast. I release new episodes every Wednesday. If you need any links, I will leave them all down below in the show notes. To register for a Reiki course, a mediumship practice circle, or the Advanced Reiki Practitioner Masterclass. But until next Wednesday, Middlers, when I see you in your ears, I hope you have a wonderful week. Bye, everybody.